Dennis, do you get this magazine, Environmental Science and Engineering magazine?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah.
George, is that house going to be ready to rent? George has got his earplugs and he's busy building a house.
We're live on Facebook.
Ready to roll?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, we're good.
Okay. So call this meeting to order at 7:02. Would someone from council be willing to read the acknowledgement?
I'll read it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
We acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries.
Thank you, Councillor Pat. Is there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration has a few. If we can do addition 5.3, pest inspector appointment.
That was the email that Sherry just sent out a little bit here ago.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, and the deletion is?
Deletion, Mr. Mayor, 5.2, we won't need those motions. If we could delete those motions, we'll just get you to read out the letter and for council for the appointment.
Oh, okay. So I just read it out. I don't need
Yes.
to look for a motion.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. No motion required. Great. That's a change from the past then. Because we've had to make that motion before, right?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Haven't heard none. Look for a motion to adopt the agenda then as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor George.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda for March or May 20th, 2020 as presented.
Thank you very much, Councillor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion from our council? Okay, haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? And the motion's carried. Great. Thank you very much. So once again, we're back into this on social media, and thank you for your patience, and thank you to administration for setting us up so well and getting this rolling. Much appreciated. So we have a delegation this evening. Mike Krim from Tanmar Consulting is with us, and he has a presentation of the assessment for the town. Mike, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'll share the screen here and you let me know if you all see it.
You look much younger on the video here for some reason, Mike.
That's good. I should do more of these. You can all see the presentation there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. For those of you that don't know me, I think most of you do. My name is Mike Krim from Tanmar Consulting. We're out of Sherwood Park. And yeah, here to talk about the assessment for this year and the impacts and a little bit about maybe going forward as well. The first number of slides are going to be an assessment 101, as I like to call it, just a bit of brief information about assessment and how it's done. What is an assessor? Well, we're employed by municipalities to prepare and defend assessment roles, and we're trained in a variety of areas, including property valuation techniques, legislation, quality assurance, and statistical analysis. And we have to have a professional designation to be a designated assessor for a municipality. And I hold the first one there, the AMAA, Accredited Municipal Assessor of Alberta.
Mike, would you like us to ask any questions during your presentation or after, or
I leave it entirely up to council, Mr. Mayor, whatever you prefer.
If anyone has a question, just shout out, I've got a question, and we'll stop and take the question. Okay, Mike?
You bet. So assessment can be delivered in a number of ways in Alberta, or I guess two main ways. One, they're employed by municipalities, an in-house type salaried department like City of Edmonton or Calgary or Red Deer. They all have in-house salaried employees, or municipalities are able to contract their service providers. And there are currently 23 of us contractors in the province. And a little table on the bottom showing how many municipalities are done by in-house assessors, and all the other municipalities are done by contracted services. So the vast majority of municipalities are done by contracted services, but the vast majority of parcel counts are done by in-house because the City of Edmonton and Calgary. What is property assessment? Well, it's the process of assigning a dollar value to a property for tax purposes. And based on legislation, this dollar value can either be market value or a regulated value. And I'll get into those in a couple slides. What is property taxation? That's the process of applying a tax rate to a property's assessed value to determine the taxes payable. It is the primary source of revenue for a municipality. And there's several principal foundations of taxation that you can see there. Although one impacts the other, they are distinct and independent processes. We do the assessment for the town and the town sets the tax rates. Who governs the assessment? Well, that's Alberta Municipal Affairs, just like they govern your operations as well. They provide all of the legislation regarding assessment and taxation in Alberta through several means. One is Municipal Government Act, and there are a number of regulations. I've listed 2 of them here, but there are more as well. And they also provide the yearly oversight of the assessment through their audit program. They want to make sure that we're following rules and regulations that they've set out to ensure fairness and equity in the assessments. So going back to the valuation standards, the 2 valuation standards are market value and regulated. Market value is used for the majority of properties. It's considered the most fair and equitable method. Most taxpayers can relate to the value of their property, and it's easy for assessors to work with because sales data is typically readily available. We get all our sales through land titles information, Alberta registries. The second standard is the regulated procedure standard, and that's used for properties that are a little bit more difficult to assess using market value. The rates are provided by Municipal Affairs. So a couple of examples here, farmland. Farmland's not done on market value, it's done on a productivity rating. Same with machinery and equipment, that'd be stuff used in processing and manufacturing, and designated industrial property. So when we talk about market value, we're talking about the price that a property might reasonably be expected to sell for if it is sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer after appropriate time and exposure in an open market. Key characteristics, it's the most probable price, not the highest, not the lowest or average. It assumes that there's a willing buyer and a willing seller and no advantage being taken up by either party. And it assumes a transaction between unrelated parties in the open market. When it comes to assessments and sales prices, it's sometimes assumed that an assessment should equal a recent sale price, and that's not a correct assumption for a couple of reasons. One, the sale might not have occurred in the assessment year or the date on which the property was valued, and I'll talk about valuation dates in a couple of slides here. Another one might be where the buyer or the seller was, motivated for different reasons. Third one would be there might have been a sale involving a trade or personal property, things like that. The sale price is the historical fact that comes on a property. It's the amount that was agreed upon by both purchaser and seller and surrounding a specific property. And we gather information on ranges of sale prices as part of the process for assessing property. Another slide on regulated property. I talked about how it's for farmland, machinery, equipment. I also mentioned designated industrial property. That's for all of your linear, including power lines, pipelines, telecommunications lines, wells, railway, anything regulated by the Alberta Energy Regulated. Those are all assessed by Municipal Affairs and not by our company. And that's on the designated. We do the farmland and machinery equipment that's not designated industrial. So what are we looking for when we prepare assessments? We're going to prepare an assessment on a parcel of land if it's vacant. We'll prepare an assessment on a building, or we'll prepare an assessment on a parcel of land and the building that's there. We do use mass appraisal. So we're valuing large groups of properties as of a given date using common data and mathematical models. And we focus on the larger group, not on a specific property. It does get more specific when we receive concerns or complaints from the taxpayers about their property assessment. Then we will get into it a little bit more individually. What kind of data do we collect, or how do we collect it? We collect it through site inspections, blueprints, by written requests on occasion. Some of the elements we're looking for on residential properties are including land area, building size, the location, the number of bathrooms, age, basement finish, basically anything that any other real estate professional would be looking at when valuing your property. And for non-residential property, much of the same, but we'll also look at commercial fencing, paving, and on some properties, we are looking at income data. And when I mean income data, I'm talking about the rent that the landlord can get for renting out that space to a business, not specifically the business income, but the rental income to that space. So a strip commercial, strip mall, for example. On the residential side, multifamily, like an apartment building. How often do we assess property? Every property is adjusted yearly for changes in the market value, and 20% are inspected annually. We're looking for renovations, additions, and deletions, and we will inspect new construction as it is built, and we monitor it until that construction is completed. When it comes to assessment classes, we have to assign at least one of the 4 assessment classes to every property. 1 is residential, 2 is non-residential, 3 is farmland, and 4 is machine equipment. And it's the assessment class that will determine the tax rate that will be applied to each property. Getting into the importance of the dates that we have to use. So for 2020 taxation, we are now on a valuation date of July 1st, 2019, meaning that all properties using the market value standard are assessed as of this date. And that's important because of the current medical or health situation that we're in, plus the economy the way it is. Everything that we've done is pre-COVID-19, pre-economy collapse. So it's important for ratepayers to understand that our valuation is still based on July 1st of 2019. We also have to record a condition date. So physical characteristics of the property are recorded as of December 31st, 2019. So if you have, for example, new construction, new house, and it was framed up by the end of the year, you'll be assessed for a framed house, and we'll follow back as the years go on until that's completed. And
Question.
Sorry.
Question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so condition as of the end of the year. So if there was a fire November 30th of 2019, then that would be relooked at for the taxes?
Correct. If there was a fire in November of 2019, the town would typically notify us of that fairly quickly, and we'd put it on our cycle to inspect and find out how much damage, if it was a full write-off or if it's going to be repaired or what have you.
I see.
And then assessment roll completion by law, we have to have all our assessments into the municipalities by February 28th of every year. Some of the common terminology that you might encounter when talking with an assessor. General assessment is the yearly function of completing assessments on every property in the municipality based on the market value or regulated rates. The rotational assessment is the yearly function of reviewing 20% of the properties, including residential, commercial, and light industrial. And then the annual assessment is the function of inspecting new construction for inclusion in the overall assessment. Property owners do have rights when it comes to their assessment. They have the right to assessment information. They can get that through direct contact with the assessors, through our website, tanmarkconsulting.com, through the town of Bruderheim. They have a right to make a complaint against the assessment if they feel it is incorrect, and we do recommend some steps to follow. One is compare your assessments with other similar property, and you can do that by looking at the assessment roll. You can do that by going to our website, and we have a link there that allows you to look at assessment summary information. We encourage you to talk to the assessor. Oftentimes issues can be resolved, questions can be answered. And if you're still not satisfied, then yes, definitely you fill out a complaint form, assessment complaint form, available at the town office. You pay appropriate fee, and then you have to prepare for and attend an assessment review board hearing, which will be determined at a later date. Review boards are a quasi-judicial administrative board. They are created, empowered, and staffed according to legislation laid out in the MGA. And they can order something to be done, such as change an assessment on a property, depending on the evidence and the argument that they hear at the hearing. And there's a couple of review boards. There's an LARB, that's for residential properties, and a CARB for non-residential properties. And any decisions that they make are for the current year only. And then when it comes to taxes, property's share of taxes will change for a combination of two reasons. One, there's a change in the annual budget requirements, municipal or school, or a particular property assessment changed more or less than the average for the town. So our primary goal when it comes to assessment is a level of market value and a fair process across all properties, not a pinpointed single appraised value. So if everyone's assessment value is calculated using the same uniform methods and techniques while using sales within the municipality as a benchmark, then a level of market value will be achieved and the tax distribution should be fair and equitable. So now I can get into the rest of my presentation talking with regards to specifics on the assessment over the last year. So I talked about our rotational inspections, and in 2019, this is the area that we focused on in Brookside. And we will, for 2020, be finishing up the area in Brookside and then also moving into the Sunset area.
Mike, you're going to incorporate two different areas of town next year?
Yeah, we've divided up the area based on parcel count as close as we can to that 20% per year. And unfortunately, we could say Brookside all in 1 year, which would mean more in 1 year and less in another year. But we've decided that we'll just try and keep it equal throughout each year.
All right, so that component at the back of Brookside would be included in the net 2020s, right?
That's correct.
All right.
This is the average market change that we've seen between last year's assessment and the current now. So you'll see that there's an average residential market value decrease of about 4.5% in assessment value, and that ranges from, you know, less than 1% down on the south side of town in that small residential area, all the way up to minus 6%, 6.2% in the Brookside area. The average single-family dwelling assessment has dropped by 2.6%. So this is including growth. The previous slide didn't include growth. That was just market value. So because we did see some growth in the residential sector through permits for new garages. I don't believe there were any new houses, but permits for new garages, renovations and things that we've picked up, basement finish, stuff like that. The average assessment overall dropped by 2.6% from 222,300 to 216,700. This is a graph of a distribution graph, I guess, for showing that the majority of the properties, single family properties in town, 61.64% dropped between 2 and minus 6%. If you add in anything that dropped by even a little bit more, 6 to 10%, you're adding another 23%. So you're at 84% of your properties, single family in town, dropping by 2% or more in assessment. The 4.5% incidentally is pretty typical for some of the other areas that we're seeing. And I've got a slide coming up that shows that as well, right here. So for example, in Bonaccord, we saw 2.2% market change with an average assessment of 256.5. In Fort Saskatchewan, there's a 3.3% market change, average assessment now of 385.2. Redwater, 1.4% down, average assessment of 205.7. And in the town of Lamont, about a 3% market change with an average assessment of 194.8. Other property types, the vacant residential lots, we found an average market change down of about 8%. And that was not so much based on sales. There weren't a ton of sales, but there were some listings that we had to follow to make sure that we were still reflecting market value on the vacant lots. Commercial assessments, not much change. There wasn't much showing us a difference in valuation in the commercial assessments. On the growth side of things, on the residential growth side of things, there weren't any new houses, new permits, new development permits for new houses, but 5 houses that were built in 2016 that were tax-free are no longer tax-free. So there's some growth there. And then, as I said, growth from our inspection cycles, including renovations. On the non-residential commercial side, we've got Canadian Rockies hemp. And the building is going to be tax-free until, I believe, 2022 taxation. But you are getting some taxes now on the land value there where you weren't before because it was all farmland before. And we'll be monitoring that, and we'll actually be setting up a meeting or an appointment with them to do a thorough inspection of the property sometime this year. What's next? Well, I have property tax bylaw, but I believe that's already been dealt with. Mailing of your assessment notices coming up right away. We are going to take the inquiries from ratepayers. We'll do inspections and reassessments as required, and we'll have to work with the town as to how best to follow protocol for social distancing on that side of things. And then we'll have assessment review board hearings if required. The unknown thing for us is, I'm sure it is with you, is COVID-19 and how that affects us going forward. Loss of employment, shuttering of businesses, all kinds of things. Where does that look for market values in town? I don't know yet. We haven't seen enough evidence of market changes yet, but I expect that it's not going to be an easy task for us to try and establish market values going forward with very few sales in the area, but it's the same everywhere. So it's just something that we're going to have to meet head on and go forward with.
Thank you, Mike.
And then there's some additional information here, website links, including Municipal Affairs has a good website link. The AUMA website has some good stuff there, and then our website as well. And that concludes my presentation. Did you have any questions at all?
I've got one.
Sure.
To Wayne. The assessment on the Teals greenhouse area, that doesn't show up on their map here at all. There's some residents over there too. Do you do those as well?
Yes, we do. It's because they're included as part of the rural area, and we have not included on the map.
So where did they fare this year then? As
if you give me a second, I can just look it up real quick here.
Keeping in mind, they're still being taxed for whatever the county's paying for so many years, but I don't know if they,
Mike, in your report, it said that the commercial took a drop as well. So that would include Teal's greenhouse then, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that was mostly the downtown commercial, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay.
Okay. By location. Residential miscellaneous acreages. Down 2.3%.
That's average for all of them.
That's correct.
okay. And does that include the other side on the west end? There's still a property out there, is there not?
Yeah, we kind of group all the acreage properties together.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions from council? Mike, would it be okay if I ask if you could pick out the main points that you found in your audit findings report to report to council?
The audit, you're talking about the metrics group one that you have there?
Yeah.
I don't have that. I think that's
okay.
just sent to council.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll deal with that in correspondence then. Thanks. Is there any other questions for Mike?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
So next year, considering these are 2019 and drop, next year is going to be a real challenge with the COVID and how much it's expecting. I noticed as I've gone to other towns, lots of businesses are closing. Like you see places going up for rent left, right, and center. So I'm glad we haven't got any of that here, but I'm thinking it's going to be a big challenge to try and figure out where we are on that. Do you foresee it? I'm assuming you foresee something going down. Thoughts?
The consensus amongst some of the assessors and colleagues that I deal with is, yeah, we're expecting market values to drop. By how much? and in what sectors or what cities or municipalities is very tough to say. There just hasn't been enough yet. For example, we get our registry's data comes in about a month after a sale. For example, something sells in March, we're not seeing that until April by the time it's registered at land titles. So the beginning was kind of March, mid-March for COVID. There's going to be a delay definitely before, people are doing their best to stay in their homes and keep making their mortgage payments or keep making their rent payments in commercial properties, keep their businesses going. There's certainly going to be a delay before we see anything really concrete happening. Whether that happens by July 1st this year, I don't know.
Thank you, Mike. Was there any other questions from council? Okay, then thanking you, Mike, for the great job and always being there for us for the town with our assessments. Look forward to seeing you again next time. We need a motion from council to accept Mike's assessment presentation.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dan.
I move that town council accept the assessment presentation presented by Mike Krim, Tanmar Consulting Services, as information.
Thank you, Dan. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Just like to, again, thank you, Mike, for taking the time. And like I said, you look younger on the screen there, so maybe you might want to do this all the time. So thanks very much. So
Thank you. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
See ya.
So we'll call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you very much, Mike. I'm sure you'll enjoy your commute home. Now we're on to the weed inspector appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're asking that council appoint Elsie Graham as weed inspector for the town of Bruderheim effective May 20th, 2020 to December 31st, 2020.
Yeah, there's, you just wanted me to read this out, didn't you?
Oh, you could ask council if there's any concerns, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, is there any concerns if we don't have a motion for the weed inspector appointment? Just looking for direction from our council.
So, Mr. Mayor, if there's no concerns, you can just read out the appointment.
Okay. And the appointment is for Elsie Graham, weed inspector, dated May 20th, 2020. Weed inspector appointment, whereas the town of Bruderheim Council have the authority to appoint weed inspectors to carry out the powers and duties of a weed inspector under the Alberta Weed Control Act. I hereby appoint Elsie Graham as a weed inspector for the town of Bruderheim. This appointment is effective from May 20th, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. Sincerely, town of Bruderheim. And so then we do the same for weed inspector Deanna Jolie.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Again, I'll just check with council. We're okay to just read out the appointment.
Question, Mayor, are these the same two that were here last year?
Mr. Mayor, through Deputy Mayor Schuler, no, they're different this year.
Oh, okay, no problem. Thank you.
And do we need two, or do they travel separate, or does one pick up when the other one can't make it? Is this how it is?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lee, that's correct. So if only one's here at a time, but if there's one away on vacation or sick or training, the other would come.
All right.
And we have such a big weed problem, we need two different inspectors. I'm just kidding.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Campbell has a question.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor George.
Yes.
That's in our contract with Strathcona County.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what Councillor George's concern was.
What is the dollar value one? Is it part of our contract?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Campbell's asking if what the dollar value is on that contract.
Okay, that's an interesting question, not really pertinent to this appointment, but does the administration have that figured?
Mr. Mayor, last year was approximately $2,000.
Okay. Does that satisfy your question, Councillor George?
Yes, I think it's something that should be readily known.
So, Mr. Mayor, that depends on, of course, the weeds and the notices that we give out. So generally, it's somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 at the most.
I suppose it depends on the number of complaints that get registered as well, then the price would go up, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, in the last 5 years, we haven't gone over $3,000.
Thank you. If there's no other concerns, I'll read out the appointment for Deanna Jolie. May 20th, 2020, Deanna Jolie, Weed Inspector. Whereas the Town of Bruderheim Council have the authority to appoint weed inspectors, carry out the powers and duties of a weed inspector under the Alberta Weed Control Act, I hereby appoint Deanna Jolie as a weed inspector for the Town of Bruderheim. This appointment is effective from May 20th, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. Sincerely, Town of Bruderheim. Okay, so that looked after that piece of business. Now we're on to 5.3, Pest Inspector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very similar. We need you to appoint Sterling Kozak as our pest inspector for the Town of Bruderheim.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, the letter, you'll have to insert pest inspector for weed inspector.
oh, okay, it reads the same.
Do you have the third letter, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, it's on my work computer, just trying to fire that up. But I can use this sheet to just read the name in. What was the name again, please?
Sterling Kozak, Mr. Mayor.
Sterling Kozak. Okay, thank you. Inspector. Okay, so if council is all right with just reading out the appointment, then I'll go ahead. Council is okay with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So May 20, 2020, pest inspector appointment. Whereas the Town of Bruderheim Council have the authority to appoint pest inspectors to carry out the power and duties of a pest inspector under the Alberta Pest Control Act, I hereby appoint Sterling Kozak as the weed inspector for the Town of Bruderheim.
Pest inspector.
Yeah, I believe I said pest inspector.
No. Weed.
Oh, okay, pest inspector for the Town of Bruderheim, Deanna Joel or Sterling Kozak. And this appointment is effective from May 20, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. Sincerely, Town of Bruderheim. Okay. And then the next piece of business is adopt the minutes, 6.1. I'm sorry, Councillor George.
You didn't ask a question on this appointment. I have a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead, George, if you have a question.
This appointment, does this fella do all extermination too, or is he just an inspector?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, he also does the control, pest control as well.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions from council on this appointment?
Is this in the same contract as the weed inspector?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell.
Okay, is there any other questions on this appointment for the pest inspector? Okay, so we can move on to adopting the minutes of the May 6, 2020 regular meeting of council. Would someone be willing to make that motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pat.
I move that council adopt the minutes of the May 6, 2020 regular meeting of council.
Thank you. Comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, haven't heard none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And the motion's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to number 7 is council priorities. And we're looking for information requests. Let's start with Councillor George. Do you have any information requests?
Nope, I have nothing to report or inquire about.
Okay. Councillor Pat.
Not right now, thanks.
Deputy Mayor Judy.
I have one question. Any ideas of what you guys are doing for Seniors Week beginning in June?
Mr. Mayor, through Deputy Mayor Schuler, yes, we're putting some things together and we'll be sharing with council next week, Seniors Week and Canada Day. We were
Thank you
just
very much.
waiting, we're just waiting as the more regulations are being released by the province. So we've got stuff on the stove. We're just waiting for, like right now, we can go up to 50 participants outside, right? So phase 2 is mid-June. We're hoping that those numbers will increase.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Len,
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Wayne,
A couple things. Is there plans, or do you know if they're going to be doing music in the park again this year?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, no, we won't be this year.
No? Okay. Is there a possibility, or how can a resident request, or if they can request, to move a power box and lamp post so it's not in their driveway? Is there anything that they can do about that?
So Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, they would have to go through Fortis. If the power is a power box through Fortis, I'm not sure who is. It could be a Shaw or a Telus.
I think it's a Fortis one, but I wasn't sure if there was a process or if they could even do that. So
Yeah, just go online. They have the information, work request right on Fortis.
okay. And staying with Fortis, do you know when they'll be coming out to do lamp posts and stuff like that?
Mr. Mayor, through
Straightening.
Councillor Lecco, no, we haven't got a schedule yet, but we'll write that down to see if we can get some information.
Okay. And did everybody get a door knocker on their door?
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
Good.
to doing that,
Mr.
Councillor Wayne.
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, we actually got some calls today in the office about it.
Excellent. I did have some hired free help me out with it. So if you guys see Arlie Young walking around, thank him as well, because he came around with me. So
Thank you, Arlie.
that's everything for now.
Thank you. Councillor Dan, any information requests?
Yeah, a couple of things. I had a resident approach me and they were curious about signage for our campsite. They said that they know of some people who wanted to camp, and because of our lack of signage, they didn't know where to go, who to talk to, and so on. So I guess my question would be, what would the cost be for some signage for our campground?
So, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Dan, just riffling. I'm not sure what signage, there's a registration, self-registration, and then there's information if they go during the office hours, they can register at the town office. So did you want to maybe go over there? We could meet with you and see if there's something we can improve on.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then the other thing, I guess we were having some email conversations about this. What would a speedboard cost for the town of Bruderheim to use for our own internal use?
So, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Scottswell, presently we are on the rotation with Lamont County, but the cost of those speed boards, I should know this, Fairfield just bought one, but I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor. I know that the speed board was at Chipman. Who's next on the rotation for that speed board from the Elk Island traffic?
Mr. Mayor, I believe Dennis said Andrew. Is that
Okay,
right, Dennis?
okay. I did have one information request. If no one else has any information requests. Okay. A while ago, we had inquired if the skateboard park money raising sign by the fire hall could be taken down, and I'm just wondering what the timeline is for taking that sign down off the fence.
Mr. Mayor, we replaced that last fall with the community park sign. We're continuing to fundraise for phase 2.
Okay, so that's the community park sign now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then my last question is the relaunch of the town facilities. When would we be able to alert the residents as to what our plan is going forward?
Mr. Mayor, we were on a call yesterday with the Alberta Emergency Operations Center, and they give some clarity around individuals are now responsible for ensuring that they're following the COVID-19 rules as laid out by Alberta Health Services. So we're looking at launching next week. We just have to get signs and ensure that we have everything cleaned and ready to go.
Great. Thank you for
And
that.
Mr. Mayor, that would only be for outdoor recreation facilities. The indoor recreation are still closed according to Alberta Health Services regulations.
Great. Thank you very much. If there's no more information
Right.
requests,
I have a question
I
on
have
that.
one too.
go ahead,
With the,
Councilor Pat, and then Dwayne.
okay, with the skate park opening, so you're anticipating next week? Is that what I'm hearing, or?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lee, we're just waiting for our signs. And yes, if we get them next week, we'll be opening the skate park.
Okay, so I could share that with residents that there's a good opportunity they can get their boards out and get going next week.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lee, we just
Okay.
have to ensure that the area is safe. We haven't de-winterized it yet,
Mhm.
and get those signs up appropriately and ensure that we do good communication about the rules and regulations. If they're not followed, the park will be closed immediately.
Understandable. Yep, thanks.
Thank you. And then Councilor Wayne, you had a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. It came up last night at a minor sports meeting. I know we talked about this last year for the arena. Is it possible for Lamont and Bruderheim to alternate a week on either end? So one opens a week early, one stays a week later?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, yes, actually, the CEO and myself of Lamont have been chatting about that, taking turns, one opening earlier and one staying later, alternate years.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll start with a program request then. Councillor Wayne, did you have any program requests?
I don't think so. No, not that I have right in front of me, no.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dan, any program requests?
No, none for me today. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Judy,
I have nothing, thank you.
Councillor Pat,
I'm good, thanks.
Councillor George,
Nothing.
Councillor Len. Okay, so then we can move on to request for decisions 8.1 2020 final budget and 3-year financial plan and 5-year capital plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll turn this over to my Director of Finance to start us off. Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll read the report for council. So we're going to provide council with information on the 2020 operating budget, 2020 amended capital budget, and the 3-year financial and 5-year capital plans. The town council approved the 2020 final municipal operating budget as presented. The town council approved the 3-year financial plan for the town of Bruderheim as presented. The town council approved the 2020 amended capital budget as presented. The town council approved the 5-year capital plan for the town of Bruderheim as presented. On December 18, 2019, council passed the interim operating budget with a 1.9% projected increase for the 2020 budget. The final 2020 operating budget is prepared with no increase for tax dollars from the 2019 operating budget. Due to COVID-19 and decrease in assessment, administration worked diligently to mitigate the operating budget having an impact on the 2020 municipal tax levy. The operating budget is balanced and shows totals of $4 million, $16,565 with amortization and $3,568,409 excluding amortization for both revenues and expenditures. The final operating budget maintains service levels provided to the residents of Bruderheim while proactively providing for our future. The 3-year operating plan is based on the plan to maintain service levels and an assumption of 1.5 increase on cost of service delivery per year. The 2020 amended capital budget totals $444,000, is fully funded through grants. The equipment and GIS initiative are funded by a $214,000 MSI capital grant. The water reservoir design is funded by a $200,000 ACP grant. The community park trails are funded by a $30,000 Alberta recycling grant. The 5-year capital plan assumes that the current provincial and federal funding programs remain in place. Strategic plan areas, sustainable and safe infrastructure, the development of a 5-year capital plan, a healthy, vibrant community, continuous improvement service levels in the community, Open and transparent governance and administration, a community that is educated on responsibilities and limitations of council and administration. Other impacts, legal and ledge, MGA RSA 2000, Chapter M26, Section 242-246. In summary, the 2020 municipal operating budget is balanced and continues to reflect the town of Bruderheim's policy and practice that the annual budget is fiscally responsible. Town council's approval of the 2020 final operating budget is necessary prior to establishing the municipal rates of taxation for 2020. In accordance with Municipal Government Act, council must pass a 3-year financial and a 5-year capital plan. Upon council approval, administration will make the final operating budget, amend capital and 3-year financial and 5-year capital plan available for public viewing on the town's website.
Thank you for that. So we're looking for a motion from council to approve the 2020 final municipal operating budget as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thank
I
you,
make a
Councillor
motion. I make a motion that council pass the or approve the 2020 final municipal operating budget as presented.
Thank you, Councillor George. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion?
Sorry, I do, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Wayne.
Just when I'm looking at this, when you go down to the library, I just want to find it here. Sorry, hold on a second. I thought there wasn't supposed to be an increase this year. I'm just trying to find it here.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, that's because we gave them additional funding this year of $3,000. That wasn't in last year's budget.
The library, the Metro Caitlin Library?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. And there's one other thing is the maintenance of the arena. That's dropped quite significantly. Is that because of renovations that have been done in the past? Is that?
Mr. Mayor, through Council, that's absolutely correct. We did significant renovations to the kitchen and lobby and upstairs last year.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, just remember that we used to put renovations in our capital budget, but now the practice is anytime you renovate what you already have, that goes into the operating budget. So you see significant changes in the operating budget with renovations.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Mayor Carl.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Those, we were replacing the water meters over a period of years. Is that in this budget or is that in the capital budget then? Because I didn't notice it in capital. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, through Deputy Schuler, yes, it's in the operating budget. So this year, because of COVID-19, we've purchased the water meters, but we may not install them till 2021.
How close are we to being done with them? Do we know?
Mr. Mayor, through Deputy Mayor, Dennis can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're about 2 or 3 years out at the present purchase rate.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, any other questions from council on this motion for the municipal operating budget?
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just qualify that we have taken out the wages for the community program for 2020. So to put that position back in would be about 8 or 10% increase in the 2021 operating budget.
Mm-hmm.
Just so council understands.
Yeah, so in a way that helped us get past this COVID a little bit, but
Yes,
it might come back to bite us next year. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments or concerns from council on this motion? Okay, I just want to thank administration for all the hard work and for council's deliberation on this. It wasn't easy to get to a 0% number, so call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion's carried. Thank you. Next up is approved 3-year financial plan.
I'll bring that forward. I move that town council approve the 3-year financial plan for the town of Bruderheim as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Pat. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion?
This is something that is counting on the fact of what we're getting for funding from the different avenues. Is that the deal on this? You're counting on that money from these sources, right?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lee, that's absolutely correct. It is just a plan. It's a look into the future. And as I think we mentioned in the report, we assume that there'll be a 1.5% increase per year. It's been the history for cost of delivery service. And we're also assuming that operating grants will come from the province as they have in the past. So lots of crystal ball sort of looking into the future, but I think it's fiscally responsible to project what it's going to cost around the community for the next few years.
All right, thanks for that.
So like any plan, it can be adjusted as we go along, if need be, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. So it's just a plan. There's nothing in here that would, by approving it, that administration would be able to move ahead with, except for the 2020 budget that was just approved by council.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council for the approving the 3-year financial plan?
Sorry, Mayor.
Councillor Wayne, go ahead.
Down at bylaw services, it says we have a one-time $19,000 transfer for RCMP. What are we looking at for the next 3 years? How is that?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, I think we have 3 years, we go up to 75,000. So we'll, sorry, I don't have it on the top of my head, but I believe it goes up about 35% a year.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor Flardo has something to say.
Councillor Wayne.
I think we talked about this earlier in the year, that we would make sure that we would not put that in our taxes period. We want to reflect it that this is a provincial thing. So we should sit down and look at a policing policy so that we can collect the money, send them collect water bill, and let the citizens know that this is where it's coming from. We should not be able to throw it on the taxes and shock our citizens this way. And we have not sat down yet and discussed the policy, and I'm quite disappointed in that. I thought we had a direction of not going this way off the taxes.
So Mr. Mayor, if I, Councillor Filardo, this was just a plan. Again, this is not the budget, it's just a plan. Looking into the future, we know these costs will be facing us. How we fund those is another conversation to have when we do the future budget planning.
I have a question follow up with that. So those amounts that are in there, they're really not the right amounts that should be coming out that they projected? Because like it doesn't go up by much. It goes by 27,000 and 27,405 as RCMP requisitions, right?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, again, it's just a plan. We haven't got concrete direction from the provinces yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we're just trying to be fiscally responsible and say that we have these expenses coming.
Yeah.
So it will be an additional, we're thinking an additional 27,000 on top of our current requisition every year. So that would increase the budget every year.
Okay, thank you.
Again, it's just a placeholder to make sure that we know that these expenses are coming, and how we fund them is another conversation.
Thank you for
Thanks,
that.
Patty.
Good conversation. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council on this motion? Okay, hearing none, call for a vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And the motion's carried. Thank you. Next is approve the 2020 amended capital budget.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dan.
I move that town council approve the 2020 amended capital budget as presented.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? I'll just let that percolate for a second. Usually there are some questions. Okay, hearing none then, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion's carried. Thank you. Next, we're looking for a motion to approve the 5-year capital plan.
The town council approved the 5-year capital plan for the town of Bruderheim as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns with the approval of the 5-year capital plan motion? So once again, as you reiterated before, CAO Pat, this is just a plan, and it's good to have a plan, but it can be adjusted if it needs to, correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yeah, and we're making a lot of assumptions on the 5-year capital plan that funding would continue and we'd still have the availability of grants in the future to fund some of our projects.
Banking on the resiliency of the Alberta province, right?
How are we coming along with the capital plan as far as infrastructure and the water systems and roads and stuff like that? What's that plan for?
So, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor, through Council Campbell, you're talking about our asset management plan? Is
Yes.
that what you're referring to? Yeah, Dennis and our engineer have been working really hard on the infrastructure plan and guidance there. And then, of course, we are also, all of our buildings now are on an asset management plan. So we just have to, in the future, budget for one asset management software that would bring all of those in together, right? So anytime we do
really
maintenance.
noisy with the paper. I'm having a hard time hearing you guys.
Councillor Lee, I think you have to mute yourself there.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have to budget for some software to bring all of those documentations into one place. Right now, we use different platforms to look at different infrastructure.
And another question, just for information, in regards to the water reservoir expansion, how have we come along with that?
So, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, we are waiting for the funding approval for the ACP grant. Once we have that contract signed, we'll proceed with the design, and we will apply again this fall for the federal funding, matching funding for infrastructure improvements for municipalities.
Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Pat. Any other comments, questions, or concerns?
I have a little bit of a sideways question. I know that we're Facebook Live right now, and a bunch of residents are going to be watching this down the line. We're kind of skimming over some of these, and I understand they're, again, crystal ball projections and everything, but is there anywhere they can access this information if they wanted to look through it, and if they had any questions, concerns, comments?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Scoswell. As soon as this is approved by Councillor, we will post it on our website.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question, Mayor Carl.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
So I see on our walking trails in the 5-year plan, we've got the bridge repairs to 52nd Avenue. What's your plan there, or what are you looking at doing? Because it's only $10,000 and then not another $10,000 till 2022.
So, Mr. Mayor, through to Deputy Mayor Schuler, we had bridge inspection done. I think we're due for one pretty soon. That would be the bridge inspection costs. So every 3 to 5 years, you have to have the bridge inspected.
Oh, it's not the cost to repair it, just to inspect it. Okay, thank you.
I wish.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we are watching for, there's already been some structural things identified, nothing critical, but starting to show some wear. So we will be watching for any grants that are available for bridge or large culvert repairs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council with this motion?
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just say, this was the first year that the MJA has required municipalities to do a 5-year capital plan with funding sources attached.
I'm thinking it's not a bad thing to have a plan. That's good. So if there's no other questions, comments, or concerns from council, we'll call the question then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you. So moving on to borrowing bylaw 07-2020.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration is providing council with information regarding a line of credit bylaw that town council gives second reading to bylaw 07-2020. A bylaw to incur indebtedness by the issuance of a line of credit. The town council give third reading to bylaw 07-2020. A bylaw to incur indebtedness by the issuance of a line of credit. Council history. Due to COVID-19, administration expects that several residents will not be in a financial position to pay their property taxes on June 30th. Therefore, administration is requesting a line of credit with ATB Financial. This line of credit will allow for town to continue operations prior to receiving property taxes. Interest will only be charged in the amount used and not on the full amount borrowed. Strategic plan areas. The community is educated on the responsibilities and limitation of council and administration.
Thank you for that, CAO Patty. Would someone be willing to make that motion for the second reading?
I can make that motion, Council.
Deputy Mayor?
The town council gives second reading to bylaw 07-2020, a bylaw to incur indebtedness by the issuance of a line of credit.
Thank you for that. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion?
Do we have an interest rate on that yet?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lee, until we actually negotiate the rate, I think they won't give us a definite rate, but I can get back to council. It's
Okay,
not
thank
much.
you.
It's probably 1% or 2% above prime.
Okay, any other comments, questions, or concerns from council?
Have we did any other research into other lending institutions other than ATB? Rates wise, is a
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, ATB is our banking institution.
okay. Thank you for that information.
Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns with this motion from council? I just have a couple of things I wanted to mention. For some reason, this line of credit, I really done a lot of thinking about it, and I would be okay with going ahead with approving the motion for this second reading, but I will be looking to maybe make a motion that we waive the third reading until after July 1st, and when we really know what we're looking at. And I don't believe that would be a hardship in our administration, but the one thing I wanted to mention is ATB is our local banking business institution, so it's good to support our local business if we can. So if there's no other comments, questions, or concerns, I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And none opposed, so that one's carried. So I would like to take my mayor hat off and make a motion. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. So where do we go from here? So you have a motion? Carl, you want to make a motion? Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we delay the third reading of bylaw 07-2020 until after July 1st to allow council and administration to see more clearly the effects of what will happen with our taxes and this COVID upon our residents.
Thank you for that. So Carl has made the motion. So questions, any concerns on that type of thing?
I'd like to speak against that. There's no cost for the line of credit, and I think it's very wise and prudent that we have it in place before July, just in case we have some reason if something happens. There's no cost to this, so I don't know, and I can believe you. I believe the interest rate means we have a low percent. So I think it's great just to go ahead with it. We don't have to use it. It's there. Interest rate.
So did everyone hear that? Because he was all over the place.
We don't have to.
No, if he can turn his mic on, it'd be great.
Yeah, we didn't, I think most of us heard Len, but you were kind of over top. Your mic is muted, so we didn't hear you.
I think he also liked that.
Okay, hold it.
Since our
Counselor Lee, just a sec.
So what's happening?
Sorry, Deputy
Who's
Mayor.
talking?
I,
It looks like Counselor Lee is frozen on our end,
yeah, she is, Tash.
so we can't hear her.
Counselor Falardo, did you want to repeat what you said? They didn't hear you. Sorry, Counselor Falardo.
Okay, I believe that we should go ahead with the bylaw because we should be prepared for it. There's no cost to
Shut
us.
off your video.
Prudent
Shut off your
and
video.
wise to have it in place in case we do have an issue, throw it back for a special meeting to do it. Because there's no cost to it. And the interest rate will be, I would believe,
Oh,
well
he's
below
echoing.
2%. So I think we should continue with it.
Did anyone get that? Because he was echoing on us fairly bad.
Mr. Mayor, through Deputy Mayor, Counselor Falardo, I think I got the administration to turn off their video.
Okay.
So hopefully that will help. We had maybe too many people for the Wi-Fi here.
The-
Counselor Falardo is just saying he thinks we should go ahead with the line of credit.
Okay,
with
that's what I thought I heard. Anybody
I-
else? Oh,
Counselor
sorry, go
Lee.
ahead.
I think Counselor Lee was also in favor of going ahead with the line of credit.
Okay.
How much? She's still frozen. Oh, there she goes.
Counselor Wayne, go ahead.
I think it's a good thing to have regardless. I think we talked about it last meeting was we can use it for other things in the future as well at a cheaper rate rather than doing debentures and for smaller items that we may need to purchase. So I think it's a great idea. So I would be in favor of it.
Sounds good. Anybody else? Counselor Dan?
I'd like a little bit more insight into Mayor Hauk's reasoning for waiting till July. Is he wanting to see if we want more of a line of credit? Is he waiting to see if overall interest rates go down? What's the reasoning for waiting?
Go ahead, Mayor Carl.
My thinking is that initially my thoughts were, yeah, go for it. This would be another good tool for administration. I don't know that the interest rate is better than long-term debentures, but and you know, when July 1st comes and we have our first meeting in July, I might very well be in favor of the third reading. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do a third reading. I'm just saying I think we need a little bit more time to think about it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have one. I have to agree with Carl, here, Carl. I think we should have some more information and nothing's been spoken about how much line of credit, what purposes this will be used for other than covering expenses. I think Mayor Carl has got a valid concern there.
Thank you for that, George. Councillor George. So my thought is with all of it is we should go ahead with it. Usually your operating interest rate is usually lower than a long-term debenture. I mean, I think we looked at 350,000 if I'm not correct. Am I correct, Patty?
Yes,
And the
that's right, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, and the reasoning was certain expenses over a 3-month period, right? So in order to keep things operating properly, I think she's calculated out a good amount. If she doesn't use it, if it's not used, it's not used. It's just sitting there, which is a good thing for us. It just means that we're in a good financial position somewhere down along the way, which is always a good thing. That looks good on the books from my perspective. But any other questions?
Financial advisor has to say about this.
Who's our financial advisor?
So, Mr. Mayor or Deputy Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, I actually knocked off administration. So you can ask me any questions you have.
Well, you know, credit is always good. But at the end of the line says at one time, sooner or later, you have to pay it. And if we can't keep our things in line as it is, how are we going to go along with it if we have to borrow money?
So Deputy Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, Absolutely, we would, as soon as we receive the tax payments, we would apply it to the line of credit. This is assuming worst case scenario. I worked with Sharon to figure out what our operating costs per month were. It's slightly over $100,000. So if we got 0 people paid on July 1st, we would need to run that line of credit to 100,000. And as soon as people started paying, we would pay it down. Of course, that is absolute worst case scenario. I'm assuming that at least 50% of our residents will pay. And then in which case we wouldn't need to use our line of credit. It's just good financial responsible planning to know that not everybody's going to be in a position to pay their taxes on July 1st this year.
So this debt will become a priority for payment then?
Deputy Mayor through Council Campbell, absolutely.
Yeah, I think
would
it's
be
just a security blanket.
Short-term operating loan.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Dan.
So I think something that Patty said earlier was that she hasn't even negotiated any rates or anything right now. If we wait until July and all of a sudden we're going, oh no, we
Yeah.
need to borrow money.
We're screwed.
We're all of a sudden at
The mercy.
at the negotiating table. We have no cards. If we can negotiate something right now, great. If it works out in our favor, great. If we don't need to use it, great. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dan. Okay, so can we get, Patty, can you read back the motion that Carl made, just so we can vote on that one then, please? If there's no other questions. I know Sherry's not there, so she can't read it.
She is. She's just in the background.
Okay. If she wants to read it, she can do that as well.
Okay, the motion is that town council delay the third reading of bylaw 07/2020 until the July 1st, 2020 meeting. Sorry, we should correct that. Should be the July, what's the first meeting in July? July the 4th?
July 1st is a
July
Wednesday, so July 8th, wouldn't it be?
Okay, the July 8th, 2020 meeting.
Yeah, I
Thank
said
you for
until
that.
after July 1st, the first meeting in July, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's call for a vote on that. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Oh, pardon me. Say that again.
Which one are we voting on, sorry?
We're voting on
The-
Carl's vote.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, let's go again.
It's very echoey, I can't.
Yeah, I'm with you, Wayne. So all those in favor of Carl's motion to delay it till July 1st.
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Aye.
Aye.
So it's defeated?
Aye. There we go.
Okay, it's defeated. Thank you for that. Carl, you can have that back.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think it was good to have the discussion about it. So now we're looking for a motion for
Good reading now.
Can you repeat that, please, Mayor?
we're looking for council to give third reading to bylaw 07-2020.
I'll do that. The town council give third reading to bylaw 07-2020, a bylaw to incur indebtedness by the issuance of a line of credit.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Wayne. Anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion?
Should there be a dollar amount attached to that, or no? It's okay to have it in as
There.
separate, or is it? I guess what I'm asking,
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, it's in the bylaw.
It's in
So
the
there's-
bylaw.
but there doesn't need to be a dollar value then. Okay, thank you.
So I have one question for CAO Patty. If we didn't have this tool to help us out come July 1st, if we did have a cash flow issue, how would we work that?
It's a great question, Mr. Mayor. I would have to come to council to get a transfer from reserves.
Okay, so there was another way to do it then.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there is. It's just that would be more difficult for sure.
Sure, yep. Okay, that's all that I wanted to ask. So is there any other comments, questions, or concerns from council with this motion? Haven't heard none, we'll call for a vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? And the motion's carried. On to 8.3 tax rate bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is to provide council with information on the 2020 tax rate bylaw. The town council approved second reading to bylaw 05-2020, a bylaw to authorize the 2020 tax rates for the town of Bruderheim to meet budget and requisition requirements. The town council approved third reading to bylaw 05-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the 2020 tax rates for the town of Bruderheim to meet budget and requisition requirements. Pursuant to the approval of the town's 2020 municipal operating budgets, municipal property taxes of $1,427,106 are required. Alberta Municipal Affairs has submitted the 2020 school fund requisition, enclosure 2. Lamont County Housing Foundation has submitted the 2020 municipal seniors housing requisition in the amount of $57,431, enclosure 3. Town Council gave first reading to bylaw 05-2020 on May 6, 2020. Town Council is required to authorize by bylaw tax rates annually that are sufficient to generate property tax revenues required to support municipal programs and services pursuant to approved budgets, provincial education, and Lamont County Housing Foundation requisitions. The 2020 tax rates being recommended are contained within bylaw 05-2020. Minimum tax was incorporated in 2018 with a minimum of $500 and a minimum of $50 for annexed land. The 2020 education tax rates generate sufficient funds to pay the Alberta School Foundation requisition in the amount of $406,227.39 to be collected pursuant to the approval of bylaw 05-2020. The 2020 Lamont County Housing Foundation tax rate generates sufficient funds in the amount of $57,431 to pay the Lamont County Housing Foundation requisition. A brochure outlining what taxpayers receive for their taxes will be included with the combined assessment tax notes that are due to be mailed to town ratepayers by the end of May. Taxes will be due by June 30th, 2020, with the first 18th penalty being applied October 1st, 2020. A booklet from Municipal Affairs is available at the office that outlines the process of assessment appeals.
Thank you for that. So I'm looking for someone on council to make a motion to approve second reading to bylaw 05-2020. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councilor George.
I make a motion that the town council approve second reading to bylaw.
I'm not hearing anything.
I make a motion that town council approve school second reading to bylaw 05-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the 2020 tax rates for the town of Bruderheim to meet budget and requisition requirements as presented.
Thank you for that, Councilor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, not hearing any comments, questions, or concerns from council. Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? And the motion's carried. Thank you. Now we're looking for council to make a motion to approve the third reading to the bylaw 05-2020.
I can make that motion, Carl. Mayor Carl. The town council approved third reading to bylaw 05-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the 2020 tax rates for the town of Bruderheim to meet budget and requisitions requirements.
Okay, any comments, questions, or concerns from council with the motion for the third reading to bylaw 05-2020? Again, I'd like to thank our administration and council for your hard work on getting this ready, especially administration. A lot of long nights for you folks dealing with the budget, and we very much appreciate all the effort and the care that you give for our town and its residents. So if I'm not hearing any more comments, questions, or concerns, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the third reading, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? And the motion's carried. 8.4, utility bylaw 08-2020.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This reports provide council with an opportunity to update the utility bylaw for the town of Bruderheim. The town council gives second reading of bylaw 08-2020, the utility bylaw. The town council give the third reading of bylaw 08-2020, the utility bylaw. On June 5th, 2019, town council passed third and final reading of bylaw 04-2019, the utility bylaw. Through enforcement and references to this bylaw, it became evident that administration needed to make some changes to the bylaw as noted below. Addition of a statement to 2.81, the tenant or owner must be present. At 5.43, for all dwellings, water and sewer services will be built together. Add A after the word bylaw in 6.111. Change the bylaw that is being repealed to bylaw 04-2019. On May 6, 2020, town council gave first reading to bylaw 08-2020, the utility bylaw, on May 6, 2020. Strategic plan areas, the community is educated in responsibilities and limitation of council administration. Other impacts, Municipal Government Act, RSA 200, M26, Section 7, bylaws. The revisions of this bylaw will address some of the concerns brought forward by staff and residents as the bylaw is referenced for daily operations. Bylaw 08-2020, the utility bylaw, will be placed on the Town of Bruderheim website once Town Council approves third and final reading.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so we're looking for council to give a motion to give second reading to bylaw 08-2020, the utility bylaw.
Motion that town council give second reading to bylaw 08-2020, the utility bylaw.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pat. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Seems to be pretty straightforward, cleaning up the wording and including some things. So thank you for that, administration. So again, I'll call out any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion. Haven't heard none, call for a vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And any opposed? None, that motion's carried. So we're looking for council to make a third reading to bylaw 08-2020.
I'll make that
Sure.
motion.
All right.
Councillor,
I motion that town council give third reading to bylaw 08-2020, the utility bylaw.
thank you for that. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council on that motion? Once again, thank you to our administration for being diligent and making the wording better and crisper for our residents with these bylaws. So appreciate that. I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? And the motion's carried. 8.5 fees and charges bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to provide council with information amending the 2020 fees and charges. The town council gives second reading to bylaw 09-2020, a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw 13-2019. The town council give third reading to bylaw 09-2020, a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw 13-2019. Council gave first reading to bylaw 09-2020 on May 6, 2020. And final reading to bylaw 13-2019 on December 8, 2019.
Thank
That's
you
it,
for
Mr.
that.
Mayor.
Yeah, Pat, I wasn't sure if there was more to follow. So we're looking for a motion from council for the second reading to bylaw 09-2020.
Sure. The town council gives second reading to bylaw 09-2020, a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw 13-2019.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, hearing none, then we'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed, and the motion's carried. Looking for a third reading to bylaw 09-2020. Someone would be willing to make that motion.
I can make that one, Mayor Carl.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
The town council give third reading to bylaw 09-2020, a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw of 13-2019.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Someone has a question?
Just give me 1 second here, sir.
Sure, no problem, Councillor Wayne.
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay. Good. So if there's no other comments, questions, or concerns with that motion, we'll call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. 8.6 MPE engineering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to ensure that the town of Bruderheim has a current agreement in place for professional engineering services and set engineers' duties and responsibilities to the client. The town council will give approval to the MP engineering agreement for the period of 3 years, commencing on the date of the execution of this agreement by both parties. The town of Bruderheim has had an agreement with MP engineering that will expire on May 31st, 2020. This contract was in effect since 2015. Strategic plan areas, community is educated on responsibilities and limitations of council and administration. MP Engineering Ltd is committed to keeping the same fees for a period of 3 years, which is the timeline for this agreement. Information will be shared with the Public Works Director for engineering needs in our community.
Thank you for that. So I heard right, they're going to hold the same costs over the 3 years?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and just as an additional reference, they've had the same rates for the last 5 years. Since 2015. They have not increased their rates.
Thank you for that. So we're looking for a motion from council to give approval to MP engineering agreement. Who's making that motion?
I am.
Okay, thank you, Councillor George.
Make a motion that town council give approval to the MPE engineering agreement for the period of 3 years commencing on the date of the execution of this agreement on both parties as presented.
Thank you very much, Councillor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion from council?
Yeah, I had a few questions there earlier that I had emailed, just wondering about the rates. So thank you for that, Patty, that they haven't increased their rates for the last while. Saying that, is there an, I read it over, but I don't remember seeing it. If somewhere along the line, we want to give them notice and get out of the contract, is there something in there for that as well?
Deputy Mayor, I'll just have to look at the contract. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah,
But we always have a get out of jail. Dennis, do you know?
I would have to look at the contract. I don't have it in front of me right now. So, but as Patty indicated, there's always a bailout clause of some sort.
I don't
Is
know.
that something that we could get from administration afterwards?
Oh, just a minute, Mr. Mayor. I'm getting some signals from across the lane here.
Yeah, I got a copy of the agreement. I'm quickly scanning to see.
Mr. Mayor, 2.4, if council could, on page 2, the agreement says that we can give 21 days written notice or email to the effect to the engineer that we would like to end the agreement.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for the question. Any other questions, Deputy Mayor?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much for pointing that out, Patty. I didn't get it.
Any
I have a
other
question.
comments? Go
I
ahead.
have a concern. I believe we should shop around right now, especially with the COVID-19. There's going to be some real good offers from various engineering firms for better fees and so forth. I think we should shop it. I truly believe that. We've been there now for 5 years, and it's wise and prudent again to shop these things out every so often. And I think there's a lot better fees out there than these fellas.
Shopping around at this point in time is good policy or practice. It doesn't sit well with corporations when you start doing that kind of stuff when there has been no issues. So it's a 3-year agreement. That's not a 25-year agreement. So it's not a long-term by any means. It has an out clause. So this agreement, I believe, should stay in place and go forward with it. As I'm saying, it's not a good thing to put the squeeze on people in these times with contracts and the rest of it.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pat. The CAO, Patty, did you have any information as to engineering firms and their rates during this time frame?
Mr. Mayor, administration did their due diligence and shop market, of course, before COVID, and looked at prices, and we're definitely receiving a really great deal, as well as we have excellent service and no concerns from administration on the performance of MP Engineering.
Thank you for that.
I
Any
have
other com-
Yeah, I have
Deputy
a question in regards to that. So the fact that they haven't increased them in the last 5 years, I don't think this is the time to shop. Also considering that the contract ends at May 31st, probably more December, January of next year, right? As things kind of change, that those rates and fees you'll see them being reflected. I would think just because of they're going to try and figure out how to handle the COVID-19. So the fact that we've got a 21-day out, I think that covers us for the short term. And then if you, because as I read this contract, they've gone and they're working with the 2020, guidelines that are put out in their association. So I'm assuming others are doing the same. But by the end of COVID, the end of December, things are going to change. So then if they decide to go down or whatever, they may reflect that upon us too. And we may be able to go back and renegotiate or shop around at that time, is my thought.
Mr. Mayor, through Deputy Mayor, professional services, we have a number of contracts that are coming up and none of them are going down. I don't think you're going to see professional services. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think cost of deliver service on the professional service side are not going to go down. So in reference to assessment, accounting, lawyers, engineering service, all those professional services, I wouldn't see a sharp decline in the cost for service for sure.
Thank you for that, CAO Patty. I'd just like to put my sense in regards to the engineering. The previous engineering company we had before MPE Engineering was okay for a time, and then we had an out clause with them and we parted company with them. And we've been very fortunate. MPE Engineering has been very good to us. There's no reason to change if we're not experiencing any difficulties with them, and we're happy with the service that we're getting from them. However, should that change, we do have that 21-day clause that would be our out. From my position, I think that staying with this company is probably a wise thing to do. Any other comments, questions, or concerns?
I just have to echo what Mayor Carl Huck stated. It's better to dance with the devil you know than the one you don't.
Thank you for that, Councilor George. Any other comments, questions, or concerns with the motion on MPE Engineering?
And Mr. Mayor, just to be clear that this contract went through our lawyer. So it's not like MPE gave us a contract and we're just accepting it. We did our due diligence and sent it out through our lawyer to check and make sure they protect our interests.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns with the motion?
I have a little question, just a quick one.
Councilor Dan.
Basically, you said you've done your due diligence. So are you pretty confident that even if you were to entertain the idea of running around and asking other people for prices, costing, stuff like that, you would still be probably median to low range?
Councillor Scoswell, yes, we are definitely in the medium to low range, and
all right,
we always
with
shop.
great service.
Yes, and we always shop around. We don't just sign a contract for 3 years and then not check market value. I think our directors do a really great job of holding our service providers accountable. And if they see an option, an opportunity, we're really fortunate. A lot of our professional service providers do a lot of gratis work for small communities and they don't charge. So if they're traveling through, they stop in, they don't charge us. They do a lot of these service providers serve a lot of small rural communities. And I think they're really good to us, all of them.
All right, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council before I call the question? Okay, hearing none. Call for a vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And the motion is carried. Number 9, we're moving on to reports, council committee reports. So looking for a motion to receive council committee reports. Would somebody be willing to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Councilor Dan.
I move that council receive the council committee reports as information.
Thank you for that. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, call for a vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed, and the motion is carried. Looking for a motion to receive the mayor report as information.
The council received the mayor report as information.
Councillor Wayne, any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and the motion's carried. 9.3 CAO report, looking for the CAO report motion. Somebody be willing
I'll put that forward. I'll put forward that motion. Got it.
Thank you, Councillor Pat.
The council received the chief administrative officer report as information.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns on the CAO report from council? No questions for Patty this time? Okay, call for a vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 And the motion's carried. Correspondence number 10.1. I have two items here. First one is from the metrics group. We got a letter along with a statement of financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2019. I'll give that to administration to put in the office for anyone from council that wants to see it. And we also got a letter on the 2019 audit findings report. I'll just give you a synopsis quickly. Significant findings from the audit. Their audit procedures did not reveal any significant deficiencies in internal control. There was an uncorrected misstatement aggregated by our firm for the year ended December 31st, 2019, amounted to a $13,260 understatement of the 2019 annual surplus. And so after considering both quantitative and qualitative factors with respect to the uncorrected misstatements above, we agree with management that the financial statements are not materially misstated. They encountered no significant difficulties during the audit that was brought to their attention. They had the full cooperation of the town management and staff. Under health benefits, they noted the monthly AMSC remittances charged to account 4-00-241-00 exceeded the amount of the liability recorded to this account, which has resulted in a debit balance in the account at December 31st, 2019. And they recommended this matter be investigated to ensure the correct amounts are being credited to this account. Under the campground revenue budget, the town's 2019 budget included campground revenue of $59,500. The 2018 actual revenue was approximately $22,000. They recommend that in the future budget figures for revenue sources that can be uncertain be based on the worst case scenario rather than the optimistic figure. And they believe that it is important to communicate at least annually with council regarding all relationships between the town and our firm. They found no other issues where they are not aware of any relationships between the town and ourselves that in our professional judgment may reasonably be thought to bear on our independence that have occurred from January 1st, 2019 to May 6, 2020. And he noted they appreciate the assistance of Sharon Sinclair and the other town staff during the audit. We appreciate the opportunity to provide audit services to town. So that was that. And then a while ago, we had gotten notice from the MLA Jackie Armstrong Hominack that we didn't get a chance to bring forward in correspondence. We got a letter from the government of Alberta and Fort Saskatchewan Vegreville MLA constituency office that they'd like to congratulate the town of Bruderheim on their approval of the $200,000 grant being issued under the 2019-20 ACP intermunicipal collaboration component in support of your regional water services reservoir detailed design analysis project. So this is good news for our town. And that's all that I have for correspondence, unless there was something else that council wanted to bring forward. Okay, so I'd be looking for a motion, possibly someone needs a comfort break at the moment before we go to closed session or no?
I'll make that motion, just a 5-10 minute comfort break. And then I'm assuming we need to get everything set up for a closed session, right? Regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion for a 10-minute comfort break.
Okay. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the motion's carried. We have a comfort break for 10 minutes. We reconvene at 8:51. Thank you, Councilor Dan.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to let our Facebook friends know that we'll be stopping the live stream and we're going into closed session, so it won't resume. This will be the end of the council meeting for public.
Great.